I'll ask the question to you. A lot of ruckus has been made of earmarks, federal earmarks for states, and Paul Hodes and, I believe, all four candidates here have expressed their desire to see earmarks go away. Yet, there are earmarks that do benefits for the state of New Hampshire as across the rest of the country. The Dartmouth-Hitchcock Medical Center being one example, Nashua's own Broad Street Parkway being another good example of a recipient of federal earmarks. With this, is it really fair to denigrate earmarks, or is this more political grandstanding?
We need to end earmarks. The reason we need to end the earmark process is because last year alone, there were thousands and thousands of earmarks, and many of them led to things like the Bridge to Nowhere. We have earmarks where that process has been used to buy votes. It's been corrupt, where people hold over other senators or representatives. I'll give you this for your district if you give me this vote. And it's a corrupt process. It has to end, and it's been abused. And I think that it's very important that as a United States Senator, that my view is not only to represent you here in New Hampshire, but to make sure that we have a balanced budget, that we're spending your money responsibly across the board. And that's why I signed the Citizens Against Government Waste pledge against earmarks. That's why I do not support them. I think that they have been corrupt. And if there are projects here in New Hampshire that deserve federal funding, they should go through a competitive process like in other states and be included in a balanced, disciplined budget. Because if we don't have a balanced budget, again, we've got a $13 trillion debt. We cannot sustain where we are now. And our number one priority has to be to get our fiscal house in order. And that's why I don't support earmarks, and I would vote to end that process.
Thank you, Kelly. Ovide, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Chris. The earmark process is a corrupting one. We've seen it over the years where money has been spent for programs that have nothing to do with the national interest or what the role of the national government is, the federal government. The federal government is not a charitable foundation and is worthy of some of the projects that have received federal grants and monies. That is not the role of the federal government. We need to bring some New Hampshire values to the legislative process in Washington. The bills stand on their own and they don't have non-germane amendments. Earmarks are like non-germane amendments to bills. And by the way, did you ever ask yourself the question how the health care bill went from 2,400 to 2,700 pages? It's because they added the nationalization of the student loan program. Nothing to do with the bill. We need fiscal integrity. We need legislative integrity. Paul Hodes has had an election year conversion on earmarks. We've got to be ready to send a candidate who can stand up and say, I've been consistently against earmarks, and that's me.
Thank you, Ovide. Jim, you have 1 minute.
Well, I think that if we're actually sending public servants and patriots to Washington, and that if a bill deserves to be passed, then one shouldn't need a bribe in order to vote for it. And if it didn't deserve to be passed, what bribe would make you vote for it? Unfortunately, that's what it's become. The Cornhusker kickback, the Louisiana Purchase. The administration hands these little bribes out to secure a vote on a bill that shouldn't have been passed to begin with. I don't believe that we should have earmarks, period. Anything that requires taxpayer funding should stand on its own 2 feet for a vote rather than be put on as a sidecar to more vital legislation. So the process has gotten out of hand. And finally, our representatives in New Hampshire just aren't good at it. We can't keep up with guys like Robert Byrd. When you look at the people who are really good at earmarks, none of them are from New Hampshire.
Thank you, Jim. Bill, you have 1 minute.
Well, it's unanimous. I, too, am against earmarks. At a time when 40 cents out of every dollar we're spending in Washington is borrowed, why are we doing earmarks? It makes absolutely no sense. I, too, have pledged not to execute or engage in an earmark of any kind. And it's really that simple. It's not hard. It's the difference between right and wrong. So with that, I'm against earmarks.
Thank you, Bill.